All right, YouTube, I need you all to do a favor for me, as usual. If you can hear me, just give me a little head nod. Obviously, I can't see you do the head nod, so it'd be more beneficial if you just let me know in the comment section below. We'll go ahead and get started. Be more beneficial. Okay, good. We seem to be a go. We are a go. So, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Niko House, host of the political radio show Mikasa Sukasa, and today I have a very, very special guest on the show. This is Tom O'Donnell, and he is you're the founder, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, he's the founder of Citizens for Truth in School, and they talk about everything from real economics to real political and social history and everything in between. A very valuable, considering that many people are aware of just how truth is kind of being overtly distorted in front of our very eyes. We have a whole group of whole sect of the population that still thinks that the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery. So, it's important to have truth in school, and I'm glad that Tom was able to, create a group and start having that conversation. So, hi, Tom. How are you?
Good, Niko. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, of course. It's an absolute pleasure. So, last time we talked, we had a very, very significant conversation about manufactured scarcity, essentially fake scarcity, but you want to go ahead and go into detail about what that means exactly in regards to economics and how that affects us today.
Sure. So, in economics, the first thing taught is that there's a scarcity of the things required to live, that there's not enough land and resources to go around. And for anyone who wanted to confirm that, you could Google first lesson of economics in 5 seconds, or look in any economic textbook at your local high school or college or the library, and they will all start out the first couple pages or so with scarcity,
Mm-hmm.
fundamental definition of economics. And it's taught that because we have scarcity and there's not enough to go, um, we're always going to have problems in life, like poverty. People are just going to have a really difficult time meeting their needs and wants because, again, there's not enough to go around. So, is the information taught universally in all schools in the United States and throughout the world?
Mm-hmm.
So, I investigated that information to determine if it was true, false. I always like to trust but verify and not just believe it because someone tells me. It's always good to confirm for yourself. So I came across a couple interesting facts when researching scarcity. Number one, in the United States, we only use roughly 3% of the land. 1% is used for housing,
Yeah.
1% for farmland, and percent for everything else combined, like roads, hospitals, manufacturing, etc. So 97% is not used, and when you fly in a plane and look out the window, you can kind of verify that with your eyes by seeing all this wide open land. And one other very interesting fact is you could take every house and property in the United States today and put it in Ohio, which is the 34th biggest state in the United States, and they would all fit. And I'm not suggesting that we all move our house to Ohio, but just making a general point that we really have an abundant supply of land and resources, not a scarcity. It's just a flat out falsehood that there's scarcity. There's an abundance.
Yeah. It's I feel like there has always been this belief, and I hear it with a bit like econ majors a lot, that there's like absolutely no possible way that there is an abundance of resource. I mean, think about it. Even oil, it's one of our scarcest resources, and we have enough to generate. If we wanted to run our cars for the next 3, 4, 5, 600 years without any issues. But there's the idea that it is scarce. It's what makes it so valuable at this moment. The idea that it is limited is what makes it so valuable. The idea that the labor and manpower in it to refine the oil, that's limited, and that it's a lie, and that's one of the things with alternative energy sources, which is one of the reasons and you could probably comment on this, but one of the biggest things I think that's preventing people or preventing the government from pushing that and preventing even people who would stand to profit off of it from pushing it is that it is unlimited. So essentially you would have to change all of economic theory, the very foundation that econ and capitalism was founded upon is the idea that it is scarce and limited. Because all of a sudden you can't go to war for wind. You can't go to war for. I mean, you can go to war for fertile ground, but you can't go to war. You can go to war for water, but there's going to be more. There's a lot of it, and it replenishes itself. So, what do you think about that? Do you feel like that's one of the hurdles that alternative energy has to get through?
Yeah, so I feel like with wind power, solar, or energy like that, it's virtually unlimited, and we should use it. And as far as like you said, the whole economic system is based on this premise of scarcity, which is it's really like supply and demand. There's 2 points of supply and demand. If supply is less than demand, it's expensive, and if supply is greater than demand, and it's cheap. And I think the benefits would be so much greater by using renewable energy because it
Hmm.
would be cheaper, would pay everyone who's there. It would be safer because it's not poisonous to the environment, which means it's not poisonous to us. So, from the financial and health aspect of it,
Yeah.
you win in both ways, more so than you do with oil, which today the World Health Organization says,
Ooh, excuse me. Thank
oh, bless you,
you.
they say air is actually a carcinogen because it's so polluted from the oil. So, yeah,
That's
you'd be
insane.
much better off. It's also interesting because in economics, in the textbooks, first they define, reality is we have scarcity. And then
Hmm.
they go on to say that in theory, if there was an abundant supply of everything, life would be an economic paradise in the sense that we'd all meet our needs and wants, which would just create a terrific world because there's enough to go around. So, I mean, it's not like it's anyone's point of view that if we had an abundant supply, life would be so much better and easier and things would be cheaper. It's more of like another economic law that the textbooks and the experts say. So I'm trying to leave my opinion out of it. I'm just reporting what
Yeah,
is
yeah. I mean, the idea, like, I mean, think about it. It's, and I'm a firm believer that the after World War II, that both Russia and the United States saw an opportunity to expand and become that world power. That because remember, for a long time, Western Europe was pretty dominant, and then even Portugal was pretty dominant, and then the Ottoman Empire had a leg up for a while, but for the majority of the time, obviously the United States was a new country, so there was no way that they could be internationally dominant. And then Russia just kind of it hadn't had the revolution intellectually and I mean otherwise that they would need to be considered like a world power. So after World War II, you see Russia get the entire Eastern Bloc, right? And then you see United States fight pretty much, even though the rest of the West didn't want it to happen, fight to get Israel, to have it go from being this small to huge, and have Palestine, from Israel being in Palestine to Palestine being in Israel. And obviously they were allowed to have a nuclear weapon and things like that. And Russia was allowed to have the Eastern Bloc, but a lot of people don't know the common element here is that the Eastern Bloc stops in Turkey. Turkey is the country that you have to go through to get to Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, etc. Same thing in Israel. Israel is kind of like off to the side, like enough that you can monitor. Like it's in the middle, but it's not like in between Iraq and like Afghanistan or something to that extent. But the common element there is oil. They both knew that in order to be, the superpower, you had to have the one resource that was the most scarce, which oil is, indeed scarce. And as far as we know right now, it is indeed limited. And so you have the partnerships that we've established in the Middle East. Same thing with Russia. Everybody knows how important oil is. But my point is, the scarcity of oil has caused war after war after war after war. And scarcity of food does the same in more compact areas. So like it's a different type of war, right? It's a war with poverty versus the elite, poverty versus capitalism, essentially. And food isn't scarce. It's not. Why should we be fighting over when we know for a fact, like Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's or Walmart, they throw our food out back all the time. I'm curious to know, like, what do you consider to be the solution? I'm assuming it has something to do with the group that you created.
Yes. So, like you said, you have talked to economic majors, and they believe that we do have scarcity. And as far as like wars being fought over oil, that's happened in the past and is happening, that is just really stupid because, as you know, we have renewable energy, which would eliminate the need for that. So,
But once again, when everybody has access to something, in their minds, because that's even economists are still teaching this, like at the government level, they still preach this. So once you have unlimited, or in their eyes of what's unlimited, then it's a problem. But what people also don't understand, and sorry to interrupt, but labor is limited. So you have to have someone to labor behind that renewable energy. So it's still a resource that is scarce. It's just a different type of scarcity, in my opinion.
like the labor to create
To
renewable
create, like to build these wind towers, to maintain them, to have people work in power plants or water power plants, and to process these. This is like that's an entirely new industry that has to be created. We don't even know all the ways that water power works. We don't know all the ways that wind power works. We don't know all the ways we can use our plant life to
learn.
yeah, it's an entirely new industry. But once again, we have a bunch of old people with old style economics stuck in their mind, to the point where we can't move on because they think this is absolutely it. This is the only way. When other countries, even other states at this point, have figured it out. Like this is the stupidest thing in the world. Why would we not do this? But it's a combination of greed and a lot of obviously other factors. But yeah, I'm just so like you were saying before I interrupted. What do you think the solution is?
So I think the solution is spreading the word to parents, students, and teachers that scarcity is false,
Mm-hmm.
and that is taught everywhere. And we should replace false information that's stated in textbooks and taught by teachers
Mm-hmm.
with true information. I think it's really that simple. Just switch it out.
Man, that
And
sounds so much easier said than done, though.
yeah, but
What do you? What methods do your group take? Do they have to go through the state level? Do they have to go through the county level? Do they like how do you do that?
so some things I've done is put together like some brochures that I'm using to go out to people where I live in Chicago and just approach them and try
Mm-hmm.
to explain the problem to them in basically a minute where they can understand it and improve it. And in like the last 6 months, for example, I've talked to roughly 550 people about this issue of teaching scarcity and then showing the fact that we actually have an abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And 95% of people have agreed, and they've been every type of people you can imagine: Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Independent, Green Party, whatever. And it seems like everyone can kind of agree with that. another, like, okay, what actions are we taking to implement this solution? I contacted like some local high school principals
Hmm.
and explained to them that, hey, there's a problem in the curriculum at your school. And they said, okay, what's the problem? So I explained to them the scarcity issue. And they said, okay, we agree with it, but we're not doing anything about it. They're not taking any corrective. So I've thought of a new approach in the last couple of something to get schools to correct this issue. So I have mailed letters to the school principals that I've talked to and said, hey, I spoke to you about this issue a couple months back, and you really didn't respond to it. So I'd like to resolve this by meeting. Otherwise, I'm considering legal action of suing you because this
That's
was
always another way to go about it. Yes, absolutely. Because either way, with the lawsuit, it's a win-win for you. Because either
yeah,
you win and it forces them to change, or you at least make you bolster it and create enough awareness that they're like, what is he suing for? Well, you're giving incorrect information, and people are going to at that point be forced to research to figure out if it's the correct information.
that is kind of the mindset that I'm taking with it. So yeah, I mean, I can't force the schools to correct the wrong, but
I
I
think it's a
can
good move.
use the law.
That's actually great. That's a great idea. I think it's I don't know why anybody hasn't thought of it sooner. But if you sue them, they have to address it at that point. I
Yeah,
mean, because it's not even at that point a dismissible case. Because so at that point, I would assume you have to actually sue the school, like the school board or this county school, like the county at large. If you give them information to prove something is true or untrue, like factual, because it's not even like the Civil War. You can really, if you wanted to, you could say something like, "Oh, it's not about slavery; it's about economics." You could say that, and it would be somewhat true. But when it's a blatant lie, when you say there is scarcity, and you can prove for a fact by the definition of scarcity and by the definition of abundance that that is a lie, it's a big deal, and they have to address it. You can't just dismiss that. It's a legitimately arguable point.
yes, and that's why we're just sticking to one lie, economics, where it is very black and white. We
Yeah,
don't have scarcity, and we really haven't gotten into any historical errors that are in textbooks because, like you said, there's kind of gray areas and room for misinterpretation. So I've
yeah,
completely stayed away from that area. But it's just like once you're aware that there's this big problem and there's a lie going on, it's not acceptable per the law to just ignore it. This is like fraud, gross negligence. It goes against the entire purpose and foundation of education, which is to basically teach students true knowledge and information so they can become smart and productive citizens.
yeah.
And all schools are failing in that goal today by teaching false information.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and I'm glad that you took up, the mantle and just decided to, because this is something that I talk about regularly. The importance of, I truly feel like if we had a total 100% reform, I feel like although I'm not a fan of large government, I think that our government has expanded, beyond its capacity. I think the government has expanded in the sense that both the federal and the state governments have gotten way too big for their britches in the sense that we have no control over either of them anymore, it seems like. Whether it be through gerrymandering or lobbying or whatever, or the super PACs, we just have no control over the process. But I think that the school should be federalized, and that's something I truly stand because you can't. We have when we have the disparity in education that we have right now, you have one half of the country totally keeping the other half up, like what you see right now, the profit made in New York, California. Actually, the tax bill is a huge indication of that. The house is over 500. You can't claim that as a tax credit anymore, or you can't claim that as a deduction anymore. Anything over 500,000. Who are the only states that will be affected by that? California, Maryland, New York, parts of Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, parts of Florida. Who would not at all even come close to being affected by that? Alabama, one of the worst education systems in the country. Tennessee, Kentucky, one of the worst education systems in the country. All these places that people feel the need to get out of and not go back into, like, and create, business and a good sound environment and, for business to thrive. So there's legitimate a national it's a national economic risk and a national security risk, because we end up with people like Trump in office, for example, where some people voted for him because they were voting against the establishment, which is totally cool. But then you have people who legitimately believe some of the things this man says. They have no idea how business and economics work. They don't know that he would do things like declare bankruptcy because he knew he would keep all his liquid cash and everybody else would just be fired and he would lose the buildings. He didn't care about that. But how would an uneducated person know how to even discern the difference between bankruptcy and what he was doing to those people that work for him and good business decisions? So I think that you're right. Like, education is a problem, and that's where it has to start. It's by us learning the truth with everything, in school. And some of it, you're right, can be objective, and that's a little bit different. But facts are facts. Seems to me like you're speaking facts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reporting facts. That's all. It's not my opinion. It's just based on simple math and observation. And to Trump, he's a good example of someone who is a symptom of our scarcity system, where you have a dishonest or
that is a perfect description. That's a perfect description.
Person or who's engaging in those type of practices. And
yeah,
I think that Trump and every senator and congressman and congresswoman, they all went to these top schools, Harvard and Yale, or any university for that matter, and they were taught the same thing. Economics means we have scarce resources, and they believe it. I really think that,
especially because a lot of them have never lived in real life situations like that the average American will live, that would show that that's not the case.
Well, I think even the average American, everyone, except for a couple people, really believes scarcity. That's what we're all taught at a young age. And like, the first thing everyone's taught in life is nothing's free. And if you really analyze, well, why is that the case? Well, it's supply and demand. There's not enough to go around, so it's not free. Which is this scarcity teaching. So,
yeah, but I agree, because definitely a lot of Trump support, at least the radicalized support, comes from there's not enough. I don't want you to have it because there's not enough for both of us. Like, that's the entire mindset. Even with, Hillary Clinton, there was an element of that. We can't have too much change at once because there's not enough. There's not enough resources for us to have that type of radical change. There's not enough money for healthcare. How are we going to pay for that? Oh, same way we just paid for the $700 billion damn military budget. We take a 13th of a tenth of a percent, and we'd be fine from that. $1 billion. We could just move that from the military budget to the medical budget or Social Security or whatever you want to call it, and we'd be fine. That would take care of everybody. But that's not what it's about. They have you even believing that being healthy is scarce.
Yes, exactly. Scarcity is really, it's taught that scarcity is responsible for every problem in life. Like, you just bring up healthcare and disease. Well, we don't have enough resources or money. We have scarcity, so that's why not everyone can have healthcare, and we have a ton of disease.
What another popular one? We don't have enough. We don't have enough doctors, for example. Well, that's actually not true. We have a lot of people who end up wanting to become doctors. We don't have enough hospitals. So that's like when they say, how come we can't have free healthcare? So the first argument a lot of the time is the doctors. You know how expensive it is to go to medical school? It's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous how expensive it is. I understand why it needs to be more expensive, it's not that, like, if it's something that's taught to save lives, which increases the livelihood and the productivity of the average citizen, it shouldn't be that much. But it is. So that already scares people away. What if I'm not as good at it as I thought of? What if I don't like it? And then another thing that scares people away. People don't want to be doctors because of the time you have to spend as a doctor, right? 12, 13, 14-hour days for some. Why is that? Because there's a scarcity of doctors. Why is the scarcity of doctors? Because nobody wants to either pay the money for it, or they don't want to put the time in that's required. I want my doctor for clinicals. Yeah, if he needs to work 12 hours a day to learn everything, absolutely. But if she is to be efficient in her job, do I want her doing 3 or 4 different surgeries over the span of 12 hours? No, I want them to work 6 hours as proficiently as efficiently as possible. You get what I'm saying? So the idea, they once again, it goes back to manufactured scarcity, and it's the same thing. Manufactured scarcity works at that level the same way as it works at the level if they convince people that people can't make $15 an hour at McDonald's. That's just too unaffordable. That they can't make $15 an hour at Walmart because that's too unaffordable. When if I've actually ran the numbers, they would actually make almost twice as much if they paid their employees more. Walmart could pay its employees $20 an hour. People would be content. People would stay there a lot of the time. They would not be grasping for promotions because most people want promotions now because of the income increase, not because of the added responsibility. And most people would spend their money where? If they work in Walmart, they're always at Walmart. They get discounts at Walmart. Where else would they shop? Walmart. So once again, they say, oh, we don't have the money to do that, or we will lose money doing that, and that's actually not the case. Once again, it's another example of just how scarcity, just in economics in general, it's totally manufactured. It's bullshit. Now, I get the necessity because it's amount. It's physical amount of something. That's what they usually always talk about. But scarcity is real. But it's real in a sense of the amount of time a person has in a day. And then maybe if even we change the way we measure scarcity, then it would be more realistic as to how much something should or should not cost. That's why labor is charged by the hour and not by the part per se.
Yeah, I mean, as far as just like the main resources of life that we all need to survive on, land, food, clothes, shelter, which accounts for 95% of our needs, those are clearly abundant. And if we're good in those categories, then we're going to be pretty solid.
Yeah, and it's not even like they wouldn't still, like, you can have I mean, we know they're abundant because you can go online now, whereas it was limited, it was scarce in your area, and a particular shirt or a style of shirt would be more expensive. You can go online now and find the same shirt in the store for $100, online for $12. They would not be able to do that unless they could still make a profit at 12, and not just a profit, but a significant profit at $12, because it only cost them $2 to make the shirt. You get what I'm saying? It's like you said, it's manufactured. Everything we need, we could still buy. You know, people could still sell it, still make a significant profit off of it, and guess what? People wouldn't be starving. You know, people wouldn't be homeless and without clothing. Things wouldn't be as unaffordable as they are. There are some things that are scarce, but most of the things, like Tom said, that we need are not included in that. So thank you so much for coming on, Tom. I greatly appreciate it. Let everybody know the name of your group one more time and how they can find you, email you, anything like that.
Sure. So the name of the group is Citizens for Truth in School. You could like us on Facebook, on our Facebook page. Me on Facebook, Tom O'Donnell. I'm friends with Niko. Or you could email me at tomod4@yahoo.com. For additional information, for additional information, you could contact me and I could get that to you.
All right. And the name in the group name one more time?
Citizens for Truth in School.
All right. So everybody, if you are on Facebook, do me a favor and like the page. Do you have a Twitter?
We do have a Twitter. We don't really use it.
You get on that, man. That's the wave now. A lot of people are always looking for information on Twitter, and it's. I will say that Facebook has been pissing me off. Twitter has been a little bit better to me, just a little bit though.
Right. So I hate the 140.
It's 280 now. They changed it. Yeah, you can do a lot with 280.
I haven't been on there for so long. Hey. See the update.
All right. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on, man. Thanks to everybody for watching, and always remember, ladies and gentlemen, find your balance. Peace.